There we go. Beautiful.
Places that we love.
Mm-hmm.
Place you can stand and turn around, and every place is more beautiful than anywhere else.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Folks, please welcome our composer in residence, the creator of our second Carmel commission. He hails from Ohio, has incredible credentials, is currently a professor of music at Haverford. I should say currently, he's been that since 1983. So he is currently, but he also has a history there. An amazing man of great wit and charm, and his music is the same. Please welcome our buddy, Curt.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. And I've been having a wonderful time at the festival, hearing lots of music. I'm still filled up with Schubert because I just came from the first part of Alex's Winterreise performance. Great music here, great musicians, great people, wonderful environment. I've been having a fantastic time. And I thank you all for coming by to hear me present a little more of my music and talk about what it's like composing in the new millennium, and I'll say a few words about how we promote our music these days and utilize web resources and so on. I'll play the piano a little bit, and then if you have some questions or comments, so we can have a little dialogue and discussion. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is how it came about that I was invited to the Bach Festival. And the story goes like this. Paul Goodwin sent me an email last November. I had heard the name Paul Goodwin, but I didn't really know him. I had been in Italy, actually, doing a series of concerts, and I got back, and I opened my email, and there was this very nice letter from Paul Goodwin saying that he had heard an oboe concerto that I had written. He either heard it on the radio or maybe in a concert somewhere. And this is an oboe concerto that originated sort of at a festival like this, but in Italy, in Venice. It was a Vivaldi festival, not a Bach festival. And that commission had one stipulation, which was that your piece had to have something to do with Vivaldi. And I had based my oboe concerto on the Gloria of Vivaldi, famous Gloria. And we broadcast that over Italian radio, and eventually it was recorded, and it's on a CD that's still available. And I guess Paul heard that, and he heard the entire thing. He was struck especially by the second movement, which is the slow movement, the Largo. Also based on the Gloria, but in a kind of free and abstract way, and in particular, I think he liked the harmonies that I had kind of suspended in the upper register. It's just for strings, harpsichord, and oboe. So very much like my orchestration here. And I found a way to take these triads, just regular old major triads, and suspend them in the upper register, and they just kind of hover there, sort of like the clouds over the Grand Canal. And I think he liked this a lot, and that's what got him thinking about me as a candidate to do this very specific project of making a surrogate air on the G string for this Bach suite. Anyhow, I thought you might be interested to hear this Largo, or at least the first 4 or 5 minutes of it. So I'll play that off of my laptop here, and I think we're all set up to go. Let's give it a try. So that's about the first third of that movement. And there's some contrasting material that comes in then, and then this atmosphere returns at the ending. And it was a wonderful experience to write this music. I actually didn't write it in Venice. The premiere took place in the Church of the Pietà in Venice, which is where Vivaldi worked for almost his whole career. So that was all very honorific, really, very exciting. But I actually wrote the piece in an attic studio in our house on the campus of Haverford College in Pennsylvania. But the whole time I was writing it, I was transported to Venice with these hovering harmonies and so on. And I guess I can say at this point, this is part of my lyrical output. I have a number of pieces now that are in this vein, sort of slow and tranquil and very melodic, and really sort of embrace the old forms, the old principles of harmony and voice leading and counterpoint, but approach them hopefully in ways that are fresh. And I thought that I'd move over to the piano now and continue in this vein and play a couple of other pieces. A couple of years ago, I was asked by the Philadelphia Chamber Music Society to compose a piano piece for one of their concerts, and I chose to write a collection that would reflect Philadelphia in some way. And so what I wound up doing was writing a series of 5 pieces, each of which focuses on one of the local sites or points of interest in Philadelphia. So the first, which I'll play for you too, the first one is about a tree. It's a famous tree that came to be known as the Treaty Elm. It was located in a place called Shakamaxon, which now is called Penn's Landing on the bank of the Schuylkill River, the Delaware River there in Philadelphia. And in 1686, William Penn came together with a leader of the Lenape Indians, whose name was Tamenund, which in translation means the affable one. And they met under this huge elm tree, which has been captured in paintings, for instance, by Benjamin West and so on, came to be known as the Treaty Elm. They forged a peace accord back in the late 1600s under this resplendent elm tree, which had been there itself a couple of hundred years. And they agreed that there would be no acts of aggression between their peoples, and that they would live in peace and harmony. A great moment in Quaker history, in American history, and human history, I think. The tree is no longer there. The tree came down in a terrible storm in the late 1700s, I think. But not before, scions were planted on the campus of Haverford College, which of course is the seat of Quakerism. Anywhere, I think. We're the most orthodox Quakers anywhere. And there were 7 scions. And all of those came down except for one, which is just right around the corner from my office. And now they take little cuttings from it and donate to arboretums here and there and all over the world. There's one in Tokyo now. Anyway, this tree has great importance for me. And so the first the first piece of the Philadelphia Diary, which is what I called my little collection, is called Under the Treaty Elm, with a subtitle, The Leaves of the Tree Are for the Healing of the Nations, which is Revelation of John. What I did in this piece is to contrapuntally overlay a Lenape melody with what came to be known as a Quaker melody. The Quakers sort of appropriated this tune. And that was 250 years ago, probably. And to get them going in harmony simultaneously, sort of as a metaphor of two different cultures working together in peace. And well, I'll let you hear it. I'll sing a little bit of the Lenape song. It's a bean dance song. And it goes something like, yo, hey, yo, hey, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, hey, yo. And then it repeats a number of times. You sing it to the four directions as you're planting and as you're harvesting and so forth. So there's that. Except that I slowed it down and played it backwards. But I didn't want to have it be too obvious what I was doing. It's like it's in the left hand. It's you'll hear it right at the beginning. It's the left hand material. That's the underpinning. And then the Quaker song is a pentatonic tune. It goes something like da dee 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 da dee da 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 dee da da dum, and then the verse is above the tumult and the strife, I hear that music ringing. Da dee 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 da da dum bum. How can I keep from singing? Imagine Quakers, saying something like that, but good for them. And I put these two things together, and the piece is kind of in two sections. One is the contrapuntal combination of these two melodies, and then the second is very static, and the melodies are there, but they're just kind of hovering in the breeze, under this tree. So I hope you like it. The first movement of Philadelphia Diary. under the treaty elm. Thank you. I write a lot about people and for people, and also about places, and sometimes for places, I think. Well, this is sort of double example. I'm writing about a place, but I'm writing about people also. And notice that high couple of notes that I hit toward the end, like a sforzando? Yeah. That's also about place and people. That's a reference to some of the really bad neighborhoods in Philadelphia today. It's like glass broken on the sidewalk, on the asphalt. So there's that element in there too. Somebody had a question here. No? Oh. Under the Treaty Elm was the first in this set of piano pieces. The next one is called Old Swedes. And that's about a church in Philadelphia that was constructed by these Swedish immigrants also back in the 1600s. And it's still there, it's still active, has a pretty big congregation, and they enact the festival of St. Lucy. The Swedes adopted St. Lucy as like a patron saint, and every December they act out this festival of St. Lucy, the Festival of Lights. She's the patron saint of light and sight. And she gave her eyes that we could see. And that kind of fascinated me. And fascinated me also in that they borrowed this tradition from Sicily, because that's where St. Lucy was what do you say, canonized or martyred or whatever she was. There's a church there in Syracuse dedicated to St. Lucy, and as I was doing my Philadelphia piece, I was also thinking about this church in the land where my paternal relatives come from, you know. And so there's that reference. I'm going to play that one for you too. The third piece in the set, though, was called Masonic Temple. Benjamin Franklin and George Washington and so many of our founding fathers were Freemasons, exponents of the Enlightenment. And one of the great Masonic lodges anywhere is right catty corner from City Hall in Philadelphia. It's a big Masonic temple. And so that one is dedicated to the Masonic Temple. The fourth one is dedicated to a place on the Haverford campus again, Strawbridge Observatory. It's one of the first observatories that was constructed, probably 175 years old at this point. And then the final piece, the last of the five, is called Boathouse Row. Anybody been to Philadelphia? Remember Boathouse Row? You're driving along the Schuylkill Expressway at night, and all of the boathouses are illuminated with, like Christmas lights, and so it's very pretty. With the art museum in the background up on the hill. So the last one was about that. But the second one, Old Swedes, it's really about St. Lucy, and I kind of secretly based the whole thing on that famous song, Santa Lucia. And maybe you'll be able to discern that. What I did, though, is use the piano for the pedal effects. And the piano has this wonderful sustaining pedal, and the sonorities that I chose are very open, and a lot of perfect fifths, and I said, then just hold the pedal down and let these tones resonate, and if you do it in just the right way, you get a kind of prismatic effect. And I'm thinking about the visual aspect and St. Lucy and light and refraction and so on. So, Old Swedes. My wife, who's sitting over there, is half Swedish. So this is a little bit dedicated to her, too. Thank you. Thanks, Old Swedes. Actually, this Philadelphia Diary is going to be released on CD pretty soon.
Is the music available?
The printed music through my press, and which you could find on the web. If you just put in my name, my website will come up on the Google list, and it'll take you right there. And just go look under Works, and then Catalog, and you'll find all kinds of titles there, and these are among them. So. But there's a pianist here in California, in Long Beach. She's on the faculty at Cal State Long Beach. And Althea Waits is her name. She's done a number of American music CDs. She's a big promoter of my work, and she's just finishing the editing of the Philadelphia Diary. And another piece, which I wrote for her some time ago, a fantasy. I made a collection. This one's much bigger than the Philadelphia Diary. It's 3 American fantasies. And it's about a 45-minute cycle of piano works. It's an entire half of a program. The first fantasy is on Amazing Grace. These are all on well-known tunes. The second one is on All Creatures of Our God and King. And then the last one was written for Althea, and that's on This Little Light of Mine. And it's a big, almost gospel celebration for her. So keep an eye out for that. It should, I think, be released in the fall sometime. I'd like to play another piano piece for you, kind of in the same vein, but this one is specifically dedicated to an individual, and she was, up until July 1st, the provost at our school. And the title of the piece is Mitleid. Sometimes I get into this German thing. Mitleid means compassion. And as a way of honoring her, Linda, for her 5 years of service at the college and all that she had done for the faculty, and I wanted to give her this musical offering. Actually, it gets kind of involved. There are some darker harmonies in there in the middle of the piece, and these are referring to an episode for which I feel she really embodied all of the virtues and ideals that a Quaker school is always talking about. And I'm going to tell you this story in abbreviated form. There was a fellow on the grounds crew, not the grounds crew, the physical plant. He was a carpenter, and he had recently retired. African American, a great friend to all of us who had ever chaired a department. He helped me so much over 20 years, making modifications to our music building and designing cabinets to hold recordings and all this sort of stuff, suspending speakers from the corners of the class and all this kind of thing. And he did this for everybody. He even tutored one of my students in how to make a Native American flute, carving it out of a piece of wood. Somehow or other, he got involved in an altercation up there in Bucks County, and the outcome of this was that he was imprisoned. He was framed, so to speak. And he was going to be sentenced possibly to 30 years, which meant if this had gone through, he would die in jail. And our provost, Linda, took it upon herself to not only find proper legal representation, because it was the district attorney's office there that tied him in chains and got him to sign these waivers, which, in which he confessed, I think, to having committed this crime. Anyhow, and Linda then gathered together, marshaled, about 30 faculty members, people like me who had worked with Floyd and could give a really solid character reference to the judge. 30 faculty members. I mean, we can't get 30 faculty members together for a meeting across the lawn for, you know. And we all went up to Bucks County Courthouse and sat there almost a whole day until they got to Floyd and his sentencing, and at which time we were invited to come before the judge and elaborate what each of us had said in an individual letter previously. And so I, of course, was there. And the outcome of this whole episode was that the district attorney was dismissed, the police department was reprimanded, the case was thrown out, and Floyd was freed. And I just thought somebody has to say something in some medium to acknowledge Linda's fortitude and determination in making this outcome happen. And so that's the mitleid, that's the compassion. And, you know, it was a great risk to her. She's putting her career on the line, really, in doing something like this. She's going out on a limb. But anyhow, this is the piece that I wrote for her, and let me play it for you. Mitleid. Thank you. So those are a few more examples of the kind of tranquillo, lyrical music that I've actually written quite a bit of at this point. I was thinking back years ago, this is the late 70s, when I was working on my dissertation at Harvard, my composition dissertation. And in that I was still under the pressure to acknowledge the prevailing trends in academic contemporary music. I mean, still, even at that point, there were people imposing the serial dodecaphonic approach and so forth. And I never quite fit into that stream. And at Harvard, I had a wonderful teacher, Leon Kirchner. He didn't fit into that stream either, which is why I was there. And also, he was a pianist. Unlike a lot of composers who just write their music, he could play all the stuff that he wrote. And that was a source of admiration for me also. But in my dissertation, I was working very hard to come up with a new system of pitch organization. And so rather than using major scales or minor scales or octatonic scales or whatever other scale, or somehow abiding by principles of four-part harmony, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and all of that, I was trying to find a new system of my own, and just sort of working very hard on it. And I took a break from that while I was writing the dissertation, which came out nicely, and it took me a long time to write that piece, though, because you have to first create the language, and then you have to practice using it, and then you have to write the piece. I took a break from all that, though, and I wrote a piece called Largo. Just like the oboe piece is called Largo. I keep writing these Largos. The piece for Paul is marked Largo, I think. I put Largo at the beginning. and that was straight ahead E major. And for string orchestra with piano and timpani thrown in. But that was 1979, I think. So from that point, and maybe even a little before then, this kind of lyrical music, a little bit reflective, very often tonal in an updated sort of way. This is part of my style. But I don't always write that way. I was saying in our pre-concert talk yesterday that I have very eclectic influences, and so I love Bach, and that's a big influence. And I said yesterday I like jazz, and that's a big influence. Bill Evans is right up there with Bach. On some level, they're the same guy, I think. But I have a lot of other influences. The Native American music is a big part of my everyday life, really, and so the work that I have produced is always, in one sense or another, going to express this eclecticism. Or as somebody said in a newspaper review recently of something that I wrote, my not eclecticism, but impulsive heterogeneous tendencies or something. He's a critic who I think had a bad childhood or something. And these works, I suppose you could say, represent the hand that's holding the olive branch. Well, I have other works from the hand that holds the arrows. I have those too. I have some scary stuff you want to hear some scary stuff, I'll pick something out. But I was at Yosal the other day talking to the kids in the program of the Youth Orchestra of Salinas, one of these El Sistema nuclei, nucleos, whatever. and when they heard the Bach Festival piece, I asked them, have you heard music like this? Does this remind you of anything? And this group was like from 6 to 12, I think. Then they said, yeah, church. And then I said, well, do you want to hear some of my scary music? And he said, yeah. So I put that on. They seemed to like that better than the tranquil stuff. So I don't know. But there's a lot of variety in what I do. And well, I think that's probably true of all composers. You know, when you think of Wagner, when Hans Sachs in Meistersinger is telling the rules of singing, you have to be able to sing about the lightning bolts in the sky, and you have to know the melody for the gentle breeze in springtime, you know, through the tulips, and all the full range of expression. And actually, the more dissonant language or the more dissonant vocabulary that we associate with the kind of academic atonal music, that actually has its place. That is, I mean, that's a valid type of expression. It conveys a kind of emotion that that we've all felt at some time or another. So at any rate, we've been looking at this image here for a while, and I wanted to tell you about this CD release on Navona Records. Navona Records is the contemporary classical branch of a bigger organization called Parma Records. And I got hooked up with them maybe 3 years ago because I've done so much work with Italians in Italy, and the commission for the oboe concerto. I did a commission for the String Quartet of Venice also for their 20th anniversary. Well, that's a nice story how that came about, because they showed up at the concert where the oboe concerto was played. Then they came backstage and said, you know, it'd be great if you'd write us a piece for our 20th anniversary tour. So that's how that came about. And eventually they recorded that quartet for me, and we released it on Navona Records. And that's the cover there of the disc. And also on that disc are a set of piano pieces that were written in Tuscany when we were living there as a young family. And then there's a piece for ensemble called Red Dove of Libya. So there's this string quartet, which is called Impressions of Venice, and then the set of Tuscan piano pieces, and then Red Dove of Libya, which doesn't sound very Italian, but actually it is very Italian, because it has to do with the activities of the cult of Venus at Erice in Sicily. And the high point of the ritual there was to take all these white doves, which is still the mascot of the town of Erice. You know, all the little emblems that you find on buildings and trash cans and whatever. You know, there's all this white dove, and they're flying around all over the place too. To get the ritual started, to initiate the ritual, they gathered these white doves together and they released them from this castle, which is still there. You can go visit it. And they released them in the direction of Libya. And then you wait a while, and then these white doves bring back a red dove, which is the ornithological embodiment of Venus. And when the red dove is present in the castle, the festivities can begin. I mean, the orgy. Right. Sacred prostitution, they call it. So there's that piece also. Well, I just wanted to show you what the label did for me. If you go to this website, Navona Records Italia, that's pretty much all you have to put in, you'll get a website that they've constructed to contain and disseminate what they call enhanced content for the sound recordings. All of the composers who were released through Navona have an enhanced content portion to their release. Usually it's contained on the disc itself. So you buy the album, you put the disc in the computer, and then all of these folders come up where you can read the composer biography and the liner notes to the music, and they put all the scores on there, and so you can follow the score as you listen through your iTunes and all this kind of. Sometimes they have video materials from rehearsals or from recording sessions and so on. It's very interesting. But in this case, there was so much material, it wouldn't fit on the disc. So they decided that they would create a web outlet for it. And so when you buy this disc, you open it up and they tell you Italia web content available at, and then they give you the URL. And so you can put your disc in and play it through your iTunes. And then you can come to this website and you get this menu here, and so you can see something about Parma recordings overall, and then Navona records specifically, but let's click on scores here. There's a lot of visual material in the enhanced content of this disc. These are images from the Duomo of Lucca in Tuscany. Anyhow, you have a list of the scores, so Impressions of Venice, and if you click on that, let's try that. You get the title page and the inside page, and then if you find the right-hand corner over on the other side there, I think if you just click the right-hand corner on the page itself, yeah, see how the page turned? Yeah, so you bought your disc, you found the website, you open the score at page 1, and you're going to listen to Impressions of Venice, and you hit your iTunes button, and then you just turn the pages and follow the music. I mean, for everything on the CD. Let's turn a couple more pages just to show how it's done. Yeah, so it's all right in there. For all of the pieces. Yeah. And then to click out, somewhere it says close. Or maybe it's down at the bottom. Or maybe that X up there. Is that an X? Or maybe we just go back. The main menu. All right. So then if we can find that list again. Composer commentaries, and so let's just open that. And so that's me standing at St. Mark's Square, and you can see it says launch video, and that'll take you to YouTube, and I'm talking about that piece in a classroom in Haverford, and play a little bit on the piano. So it's just like this. Then I didn't have videos for the other two things, but I had a little script for each one that I read, so there are some audio narrations if you want to hear those. And then let's go back to main menu. And then there's the digital booklet. Now the nice thing about the digital booklet is it's in 2 languages. It's in English and Italian, because there's a market for this in Italy, obviously. So So, and it's illustrated, and oh, that's a wonderfully decorated gondola in Venice there. And so on the left you have the English, and on the right you have the Italian. And then at the back of the booklet it has biographies of all the people who were playing on the pieces, and so on and so forth. Yeah, this is Sicily here. Actually, could we go back to that one that we just saw? Yeah, this is the view from that castle that they released the doves from. That's in Erice in Sicily. And you're looking in the direction of Africa, basically. Yeah. It's all my material. So I own the copyright to everything. All the pictures are mine. All the text is authored by me. The music is all authored by me, and it's under the auspices of my press. So, no, you can't. This is a very good point. You can't download any of this. So that protects me. That protects me. Let's do a slideshow. For each one of the pieces, I did a montage of the places that inspired the music. And let's just do the impressions of Venice. Do I need sound from here? Or no, you have to click the on icon. This is from the bell tower of San Giorgio Maggiore. There it is, yeah. So this is the opening of the quartet, and it's very active, and it's all in the upper register. It's like you're with a flock of pigeons flying over the Grand Canal. And then the sequence changes. And then sometimes, as part of the plan, as part of the scenario, and also sometimes because I ran out of pictures, I put up pages of score. And then I do a little zoom in or zoom out on the score to match what you're hearing. The guys at Navona, the guys at Navona executed. This, I think, is one of the wallpaper pictures that you can download. So if you want that as a desktop, that's also in that menu there. No, what I did was put all the photos in order with timing. So I put it on a timeline, all of them in sequence. And then they created a moving file, a film file. And then we went back and forth. So they would send me the first version of it, and then I would have to say, no, this should really start to fade in at whatever timing mark, and so on. It's very laborious. Yeah, they were really excited about doing this. And that's at St. Mark's. So, this is a nice shot. That's from the Academy Bridge. I guess a lot of people here have been to Venice. And the Salute. So let's close out. We have slideshows. Main menu again. Slideshows, what else do we have here? Additional images? What is that? I forget. Oh, yeah. Okay, so various shots. And then wallpaper. These are the things that you can download. These are actually this is the cover art for the disc. I don't have a disc. Oh, you have it. Yeah, so this is the picture of San Giorgio in the background and the gondola parking lot, so to speak. And then that church spire is in Arezzo. That's where the famous frescoes are of the Search for the True Cross of Piero della Francesca. And then on the inside there are some other things. Well, that's the St. Mark's shot. This is one of the angels of the Cathedral of Lucca on the disc itself. And then this grouping here is on the inside flap. So there's all that, thank you. There's all this material on the website. Then you can see what other things are being released, so also on Navona Records. And then if you hit buy the album, let's hit that, see what happens. I don't know, I never tried it. Just I think it's supposed to take you directly to Amazon or Naxos or somewhere. Or iTunes, you can buy tracks off of iTunes and so on. Right. So there they are. Impressions of Venice, the first track of it. They give you the timing, and then it costs, what's it say? $50.99? No, just 99 cents. So there's that. And this was the first one of these enhanced content websites that they constructed. They were very excited about it. When we first got going on this project, I took my laptop with all this visual material up for a consultation to their workshop in New Hampshire. We sat down in a conference room, and all these people were there. All the media people and the producer and the president of the company and so on. And I just went through, I played the music and I went through the pictures and kind of narrated it, and they got all excited about it and said, you know, this is too much material to put on the disc because there's already a lot of music on the disc. But what we're going to do is create a website for all of this material to help promote the disc and provide the enhanced content that ordinarily would be internal on the CD itself. And it was an exciting experience. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And the score's on there.
The score's on there. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, there's so much that you can do. Do you follow string quartets at all? Are you fans of string quartets? I've written a bunch of string quartets, and recently the Borromeo Quartet.
Yeah.
They played here with.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, they don't carry music with them or traditional music stands. They walk on stage, and each has a laptop. And they put the laptop on a special desk that is made for this. And they have a line that goes to a foot pedal. And the foot pedal turns just like we were doing here. Yeah. Yeah. And you can put in fingerings and slurs and whatever you want. And, it's fantastic. They had to replace their second violinist a few years ago. And the new violinist was not experienced with this technology at all. He was very, very skeptical and didn't really want to do it, but he wanted to be in the quartet, so he had to adapt. And now he's just, is a virtuoso at turning the pages. And the thing is, for the audience, it's great because the players become so deft at this. You don't even notice them. You don't look at their feet. You don't hear any clicking or stomping or anything like that. And also, you have far less non-musical physical activity. You know, reaching for the page, making noise is much better for recording because it's inevitable that in a recording session there's going to be page turn noise, and then you have to go in and edit that out and clean it up and so on. And so you just click and they're playing, you know. And you know what else they do? I've worked with them recently, so that's why I know all this. They premiered my most recent string quartet last year. So they showed me all this. For instance, they'll play a late Beethoven quartet. Number one, they always play from full score. They don't play from individual parts. All right, so that really economizes rehearsal time because you're not saying things like, well, what do you have on the third beat of measure, you know, whatever. It's all right there, so you know. But in Beethoven, these late Beethoven quartets, they were not only playing from full score, they were playing from manuscript, which must be a real nightmare at first. But once you get into that groove, Beethoven is speaking directly to you, you know, through the graphic shape of his notes and stems, and then they put their fingerings in his manuscripts. It's really pretty exciting. Uh-huh. Actually, Bach manuscript is a lot easier to read than Beethoven. Beethoven was kind of a wild man. And Bach, you know, things line up quite nicely in the score, and it's very tidy in comparison. But yeah.
I'm curious about the mechanics of how you work. How do you get your thoughts to the score using the computer? You don't write things down, right?
Well, I still will sketch a little bit on staff paper. Oh, great. That's for you.
I'm curious about how you work as far as getting your thoughts onto the score mechanically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still use a pencil and write on staff paper, but less and less frequently. More commonly now, I'll go directly from my thought process into software, and I happen to use Finale software. My students use Sibelius mostly.
Which software did you use to do that?
Finale.
Do you like either of them?
I'm very competent with Finale, and I really do believe it's more nuanced. I was talking about this with somebody the other night. They find that there are things that you can do with ease in Finale once you have figured out how to execute them that you can't do in Sibelius. But Sibelius is very user-friendly.
I assume that Finale has a computer sound thing that makes
well,
it
yeah,
horrible.
but they're not so good. I don't really depend on that
Yeah, but it's there.
at all. But it is there, yeah.
Ugly.
Yeah, they're not very pretty. So if I wanted, I remember I was working on a string quartet, and just out of curiosity, I wanted to, you know, hear how Finale would play it. I wound up making the timbres for woodwind quintet or quartet because the string sounds are so, yeah, they're not very pleasing. But my working process is mental a lot, and oftentimes at 3:30 in the morning in horizontal mode, just working things out in my head. And so I can envision things on the score. And then I go back to sleep, and then I get up a little bit later and just go directly to the computer and start typing in what I had organized in my head. So that's my daily routine, basically. And then, I mean, once I'm up, I just extend that and keep writing. and I work a lot. I have a larger computer screen than you ordinarily would because I work a lot in what we call scroll view. So I can have a broader lateral view of the content as it's unfolding, which is very convenient because when I was a kid and writing music, I would do crazy things like take all the pages of the score individually and put them in a circle on the floor, and the whole living room had the music, and I'm kind of going around like this, trying to get a sense of the form. Or I would get a clothesline, and go from one wall to the other, and I had all these clothespins and hang them up and walk around and look at my laundry, So this is a little more civilized, I think.
Do you find that when you have to throw things out, it's easier if it's on the computer than if you put it down with a quill?
Oh yeah, could she have a microphone for the question?
Perhaps, do you find it easier when you have to cross it out and throw it away, if you did it on the computer rather than with the quill pen,
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can, it's very easy. You can just transfer things to a separate files, make a new document for your throwaway stuff, a clipboard. Or keep it in the same file and just add on 400 measures and put all that stuff way at the end. And eventually you can delete it if you want to. Yeah, rather than like Chopin. I love looking at Chopin manuscript because when he wanted to delete something, he wouldn't just kind of put an X over the measure. He would totally and completely obliterate it. So like there would be slashes this way, and then he would go this way, and then he would take a whole bottle of ink and dump it on it. So no one could ever possibly see what stupidities he had committed, in the sketching process. It's pretty funny, but sketches, that's a touchy thing. I think Brahms destroyed pretty much all of his sketches. Beethoven, we have a lot of sketch material. Even Mozart, there's some sketch material. But that's very touchy. I keep mine just in a personal archive. And I haven't thrown them out, though. I haven't thrown them out because I read Wilhelm Meister of Goethe. Wilhelm Meister is this arty type. He's a theater man. He's going through his apprenticeship, and he's becoming more and more mature. And at some point, fairly early on, he becomes really embarrassed about how juvenile his writing was, before now coming to this stage. And he burned it. And then later in the novel, he's remorseful about this. He wants to see that material again. So I kind of learned from that lesson, and I haven't ever thrown anything out. But it's pretty well hidden. I can't even find it. I actually want to find this one thing, because I'm trying to make scans of things that were in manuscript, so at least I have them preserved in some digital form. And so I was looking through the attic and trying to find this one choral piece. I still can't find it. So it's hidden well enough that I can't find it. But yes?
Do you write ever at the piano, or is it for orchestra you go straight to the computer keyboard, or how's that?
Yeah, I do write at the piano. But I don't necessarily need to. It's kind of a perk to be able to immediately hear what you're doing, I guess. And I'm a pianist, so my fingers go there. But I don't always do that, and I don't really need to do that. And it depends on the situation I'm in when I'm constructing something. So not infrequently I've written on the airplane. on a transatlantic flight. And I have earplugs, and I put them in. And I might not write on staff paper either. I might write on something else. And then I'll just work that way, because that's the situation I'm in. Now, it was interesting because in April I had this residency in Rome at the American Academy, which is a beautiful situation. Actually, it's a great honor to be invited there. I was there for the whole month of April, and my original plan was just to take staff paper and rent an electronic keyboard from the local music shop, and then do it, the traditional way, and write my piece. But then I found out how much they want for keyboard rentals over there, and I said, forget it. So I generally don't carry my laptop, or I haven't on previous trips, because it's too heavy. And I was really suffering from this Deckervan's tenosynovitis a couple years ago. So I couldn't even play for a whole year. So any of this heavy carrying of things I can't really do. But I got a case now with wheels on it, and a compartment that's big enough for the oversized laptop. And I just said, it's going to be so much more streamlined and economical if I take the laptop and a pair of headphones and just make sure to back up everything as I work. And I just worked in Finale. So I would get up in the morning, I would go to the table, and the laptop is there, and I just start. And if I want to test something orally, I have the headphones and find at least, a couple of timbres that are palatable in the Finale arsenal of sounds. And I wrote my 6th string quartet while I was there, and that was also for this same group. I sketched a piano quintet, again for this same group, and I wrote 4 songs. And that was just on the laptop, and with no access to a keyboard whatsoever. So it depends on what's available. And at home, well, I do most of my writing at our place on Cape Cod. In fact, that's where we flew from to come to Carmel. And I have my own studio there, and there is an upright piano, and it's right next to the table where I've got the computer and all my media stuff. And so I go back and forth. I always wanted a situation like Puccini had. If you've ever gone to Lago del Torre, outside near Livorno in Tuscany, his house, he had an upright piano, and then attached to it, I think built right onto it, was a work table. So it was an L formation, and then he had this like swivel chair, and he had a big composing board, not just a music rack like that. So he could write and try things out, and copy a score here or whatever. And then, of course, he had a great big ashtray. He smoked about 5 packs a day. Also, that was also built into the little command center. But I always wanted to have that kind of arrangement, and I have that now at the Cape. And I've written a lot of music there. Not the Carmel piece, though. I wrote that in Haverford. And basically, like I was describing to you, work it out in my head when I suffer from insomnia, and then get up later in the morning, go in and start entering notes. And that's how that one went. It was fun to write that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, composers are allowed to have fun. Sure. So any other questions?
How much of your time you spend teaching versus composing, or has that changed recently?
Well, you wind up, teach at a liberal arts college, and it's a teaching college as much as it's a research college. So it's, I guess theoretically it's pretty evenly divided. And I teach a variety of things. I teach theory. We're a very small department, so we have to cover all these bases. And so I teach theory always, but I have individual composition students, and I teach a piano course, which is a full credit performance course. So that's a lot of lessons. And I contribute to the history side of the program, and I might be doing an art song class or something like that, and then I contribute to the social justice program. I do a course on Native American music. So I do all kinds of things. And even in a small enrollment situation, it's a big commitment. But it's the nature of that kind of a school. But I've been teaching since I was 14, I think. Because my piano teacher, she was also my theory teacher and very much encouraged my composition. She was old and she had heart problems. And she had two studios, one in Cleveland and one in Akron. And I was from near Akron. And she had a heart attack, and she had to give up the Akron studio, but she didn't want to give it up totally. She felt a real bond toward those students. So I became her assistant. And so I taught all the students in the Akron area for a while. Eventually that couldn't be sustained, but...
This was age 14?
14, yeah. Yeah,
It's good to know what you want to do young.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I haven't regretted it.
No.
Question? See? Yeah, well, that's another tremendous source of inspiration for me. And I probably have more activities going on between Italy and here than I do within the United States at this point. Because I work with these guys in the Quartetto di Venezia, and I have colleagues in Torino, in Bari, in Rome, all over the place. And we have a kind of exchange program that's not an official thing of any kind, but I'm presented over there in these different contexts, and then they come to the United States, and whenever I can, I have them do a master class or a performance at Haverford, and it's great for the students to have this international dimension within this kind of parochial environment. Haverford's a great place, but you know, it's a bubble. And I'm not the only one. There are a lot of faculty and administration trying to internationalize our student body. And I don't think Haverford's alone in that respect. I mean, this is the wave of the future. But Italy has been a great source of inspiration to me. And I was there in November, had performances in the Veneto, and down in Sicily. There was a performance in Sicily also. I was in palaces for all of these things. Everything happens in a palace or a castle over there, you know. So. Or a church. The concert at the Vivaldi Church was very exciting. And there's a huge Tiepolo mural on the ceiling there. So if you get bored with the piece, you can just look up and see the triumph of faith. You know, it has been very important to me. And equally, the Native American community has been very influential on my work and my whole life, my whole outlook. I have lots of contacts and friends and colleagues who are American Indians, and I don't know, this might be interesting for you. A few years ago, I was working with a Navajo elder from the Pinyon, Burnt Corn Valley region of the reservation, and Tuba City. He was sort of in that triangle. His family had propriety over one of their sacred ceremonies, the Coyote Way ceremony. These are all healing ceremonies. And they're very elaborate, involving not just medicinal treatments, but all kinds of artistic components. There's music, there's verse, there's drama, there's costume, there's gastronomy, there's dance. It's like a gesamt Kunstwerk, the Navajo ceremonies, but they're all for healing. And the Coyote Way was one of these, and John's father was the last real practitioner or medicine man of the Coyote Way, and John became concerned, as his father already was, that this ceremony would fall into disuse and become extinct. So what we did was track down as much musical material as we could, driving around to the reservation to interview different singers and see how much they knew of it, or if they could direct us to another person, and then track down the last recorded performance of the ceremony. And we found about 14 hours worth of material, and then got a grant to organize it and digitize it and edit it just to clean up the quality of the sound, and then produce it in a series of 10 CDs for research primarily. And we deposited these then in the Haverford College Library Special Collections. And they're there and available for serious scholars who are working on Native American religion or who are working in the area of ethnomusicology. That's some precious material. That was one of the most important things I ever got involved in, I think. And then there's another phase. Well, there are two more phases to that project. We have the music now, and there are many verses to each one of the songs, and they're all in archaic Navajo. Now, so Navajos don't know what the words mean. But some of the singers don't even know what the words mean. There are probably 3 people who can translate this material, John being one of them. And so he's made a preliminary translation, but he wants to explicate further and do a whole word study for each line of text, because it's a very rich language, and and these allusions are kind of built into the text that is fitted with the music, and that all magnifies the healing impact of the ceremony, and he wants to complete that as the next phase of this work, and then after that, I would like to transcribe it all, so it's in notation.
Was all this music oral history, or was there actual written compositions of this Native American?
It's all oral. It's all oral, which is amazing because I think Willard Rhodes, who was I think Willard Rhodes did the opera workshop at Columbia University, but in the summers he'd go to Arizona and collect sound examples from Indians. I think he's the one who said that the amount of material that a medicine man was responsible for in terms of remembering his melodies and the words that go with the melodies, and then remembering all of the other instructions that have to be given. And then he's the one who makes the sand paintings also. I mean, part of this is the patient, or the one sung over, sits in this big circle and there's a painting created that becomes his personal environment. He becomes part of the painting. So there's an awful lot to remember. And just the cues, who has to do this at what time, and now it's time for the Yebache singers to do their thing, and so on. He said that was equivalent, at least, of what a conductor must memorize to execute the entire ring cycle. You know, from memory. From memory. Every word, you know, every doubling in the orchestra, all the stage cues, all the blocking, which character, where each character is supposed to be at whatever time, all that. And but in the Navajo context, without the device of printed references, you know, printed notes to refer to. They're reviving some of the ceremonies, and they're being taught at the Navajo Community College, which has now become the Diné University, Diné College. But this one that we were working on is not represented in that collection either. Oh, it's a fascinating world, fascinating subject to be involved in. I just wrote this piece for the Borromeo Quartet, and it's based on Navajo theology. And it goes with 3 other quartets that I wrote previously. And all of them, in sequence, trace the creation story of the tribe, from the first emanations of light frequencies to the story of Monster Slayer and his brother, who were the offspring of Changing Woman and the Sun deity. Monster Slayer and his brother go out and deal with these evil creatures and destroy them in order to make the world safe for human habitation. Monster Slayer would be a good example of my scarier, you know, arrows, you know, hand music. But it's kind of a David and Goliath sort of story, too. The young, brave warrior facing this, you know, enormous enemy. That was a project that spread over 15 years. I call it Womb of the Sacred Mountains, referring to the 4 sacred mountains of the Navajo that are there at the 4 corners. And now I have this whole cycle complete. It's one of my biggest accomplishments. And all 4 of them are available now in recording. 3 of them already were. We're about to release this 4th one that the Borromeo did in November, because that's Native American Month. And so that's our target. Other questions or comments? Oh, we've had a good time.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.